Praise the Lord. Today we are picking up in the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 47. Genesis chapter 47, and we will pick up from verse 18 today. We bow our heads in prayer. Gracious Father, we thank you, Lord, for another day in your sanctuary as we congregate in your presence. We open up the holy word of God. We pray that your presence will fill this place. Lord, bless us with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, even as we try to understand the word of God in your sanctuary today. Bless those who are on your way. We ask these favors in the name of your Son, Yeshua. Amen. So we are picking up in Genesis chapter 47, and we will pick up in verse 18. When that year had ended, they came to him the second year and said to him, "We will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also has our herds of cattle. There is not anything left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands." Now, you remember last time we saw where the Hebrew Israelite people came into Egypt, and Pharaoh gave Joseph permission to settle them in Goshen. And they got the best part of Egypt. They get the fertile land. And according to what the text tells us, Joseph gave them title deed to the land. They had title deed to the land. There was no famine. There was no famine in Goshen. There was no hardship that they were experiencing in Goshen. But we saw all over Egypt, all over Canaan, the people was experiencing famine. The people, all of them, according to what the text tells us, all of the money that was in Canaan and Egypt, Joseph took all of that and take it into Pharaoh's treasury. So it seems as though at that time, Canaan and Egypt might have been, or Canaan might be under, at that time was under the control of the Egyptian, if you take that text into consideration. So what I'm saying is that the Egyptians, they are suffering and they are experiencing famine, but there is no famine in Goshen. We're going to come to that later. There's no famine in Goshen. All of the Egyptians, all of the money that they have was given to Joseph for food. Joseph took away all of their animals and all of that. So I think that's where we left off last time. So it's telling us when that year had ended, they came to him the second year. So it is believed that this might have been in maybe the fifth or the sixth year of famine. And some people believe that this was coming to the end of the famine. And these people, they already give up their money. All of the money was already taken. And their animals was already taken. And they came to Joseph. And it said, when that year had ended, they came to him. Now, I want us to stop there for a little bit and look at that. When they came to him. What interpreters are saying is that we can't hold Joseph responsible for what the people was facing. In other words, the people have to give up all of their money. People have to give up all of the animals. The people have to give up their land. And the people become enslaved to Joseph and the Pharaoh. What they're saying is that we can't hold Joseph responsible for these things. And the reason for that is that what it tells us in the text here in verse 18, when that year had ended, they came to him. What they're saying is that Joseph didn't go to them. Joseph didn't put any pressure on the Egyptian. The Egyptian came to him. They voluntarily came to Joseph and volunteered to do all of these things. All of these had things that they are facing. It was not put on them by Joseph, but the Egyptian came to Joseph and voluntarily wanted to implement these things. So it wasn't Joseph who was doing these things. And I disagree. I disagree with that. And when I look and I see the way how these interpreters, they try to cover up for Joseph, because Joseph is the golden boy. He is the golden boy. He is the spiritual giant. And he's the one who can't make any mistake and he can't do anything wrong. So all of these interpreters, they try to cover up for Joseph. Joseph can't make any mistake. He's a perfect man. And instead of putting the blame on him to say, well, he took these things away from these people, what they said is that the people came to him and for their own benefit, they volunteered to give up these things. So it wasn't Joseph who was asking for these things. You understand what I'm trying to say? Yes. So this is what is happening here. So they're saying that they came to him the second year and said to him, we will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. So they came to him, yes, and they said, well, we already spent our money, we exchanged money for food. My Lord also, it's not a secret to you, my Lord also had our herds of cattle. So you have our money and you have all of our cattle. And my Lord also had our herds of cattle. There is not anything left in the sight of my Lord but our bodies and our land. So what it's saying is that everything already gone. You have all of our monies, you have all of our cattle, all of our animals, and now all we have is our bodies and our land. And I said before, and I'll say it again, I think when it comes to this point here, Joseph should have said enough is enough. Because as I mentioned a while ago, it is believed that this was the last year of the famine. The famine was coming to an end. And if anybody should know when the famine was going to come to an end, who was it supposed to be? Joseph, because Joseph is the one who prophesied about the famine. He's the one that said that it's going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. 7 years of plenty already accomplished, and now the 7 years of famine was almost to an end. But even though it was coming to an end, the famine itself was still very severe. It was taking a drastic effect on the people. So the people need food. So they're coming to Joseph and they're saying to him, well, we already give you all of our money. We already give you all of our animals. All we have left is our body and our lands. And verse 19, why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? So what they're saying is that if we die, the land is going to die. Because if all the people disappear, nobody will be around to work the land. So the people want to stay alive because, everybody wants to be alive. They want to be alive so that they can work their land and be productive. They said, buy us and our land for bread. What they said is that Joseph is not responsible. You see in here, the point that they're trying to raise is that the people are coming up with these ideas. This is not Joseph asked them to sell themselves to him. They volunteered that they're going to sold themselves to Joseph with their land. So it said, buy us and our land for bread, and we and our lands will be servant to Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. So here we see that the people is volunteering. They are hungry and they need food. And they already give up all of their money. They already give up all of their animals. And they don't have nothing else. All they have is their body and their lands. And under that condition, it's like under, what they call it in law, they call it under duress. If you are, a police officer trying to pressure you and, beat you up, and then they want to get information out of you. Most of the time, if you could prove it, your lawyer could prove it, the judge is going to throw it out. And I think it was like a similar situation like this. These people were facing, because they were facing starvation. These people were hungry. They were, it was famine. And they come into Joseph with that kind of offer to buy our land and buy us. And what most interpreters are saying, we can't hold Joseph accountable for that, because he's not the one who was of making that offer. It was the people who was making that offer to him. And when I hear them say these things, I say to myself, let's suppose you have a neighbor that fall on hard time. And, your neighbor, struggling, they can't pay their rent, they can't buy food. And your neighbor should come to you and say, listen man, I'm trying my best, but I don't have nothing else. I already sold my car. I don't have a job. And all I have is my wife and my 4 kids and myself. And I'm making the whole family available to you. I want you to buy my family. You guys kind of, screw up your face down there as if, well, that is not something that used to happen.
That is happening still today.
That used, you know where it's happening today?
No, like when you go to courts in certain cases in courts and things, when you fail to compensate and things, what the law recommend? That they take what you have and give it to the person?
Oh, well, okay.
It's similar.
Okay, but all right.
That's something I want to say. Mm-hmm. It seems that the people outside of the city in Canaan were not controlled by Pharaoh authority.
Well, that is what I was trying to, the point I was trying to make this morning when I started. The text said that all of the monies from Canaan and Egypt was taken in by Joseph and placed in the Pharaoh's treasury. So it means if all of the money from Canaan was taken in also in Egypt, it means that Egypt at that time probably was controlling Canaan also, because in history there are times when the Egyptian, they will be taking taxes from Canaan. So it could be that maybe Egypt was in control of Canaan at that time. All of the money from Canaan and from Egypt was taken in by Pharaoh. But what the point I'm trying to raise here is that these people, they came to Joseph. We can't get away from that. They came to Joseph and they offered to be bought. They said, we want you to buy us. We are offering ourselves and our children, our wives, and our land because we don't have nothing else. And the point I'm trying to get home to you guys is that interpreters are saying that we can't blame Joseph because it's not Joseph who was pushing this. It was the people who want that to happen. So I make the reference, if you have your neighbor and your neighbor fall on hard time and they come to you and say, well, I don't have nothing else. I already sold everything I have. I lost my job. I sold my car. Whatever money I have, I already used it up. All I have is my wife, myself, and my kids. And I'm making my family available to you. I want you to buy my family. Are you going to buy that person's family? Go ahead.
Okay. Pastor, I hear what you're saying. And I'm listening to the commentators.
Right.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking to myself here, as a good leader, if you are a leader and you're leading according to God, even though the people that come to you and says, this is our situation, so use us, abuse us, take away everything. A good leader would look into it and says, no. Let us find another way and see if we can work this out together, because you have the fear of God.
Yes. Yes.
So that's I believe.
Yeah. I agree.
A good leader would never take these innocent people because they're so vulnerable now. Right. They're so vulnerable.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. Well, we have to understand that in all of this, Joseph, he had more responsibility. Joseph had more knowledge of the whole situation. It's like sometime ago I was watching. There's a judge on TV. He had this court where people who get injured, you can go and ask for compensation. And there was one of the case that he was trying. This guy was going on a bus trip, he and his wife, and he had this big, heavy suitcase, right? And these buses have these storage compartment that you could put the luggage. But he didn't want to put his luggage in the storage compartment because he has something in his suitcase that he wanted to protect. And the driver insists that he put it in the storage compartment. and he wouldn't do it. So I guess because the driver don't want to stay there all day, he allowed him to bring the suitcase and put it in the aisle, next to where he was sitting. So while he was driving, the driver going up a steep hill, and he gives everybody warning to sit and don't walk about. This guy, I think he got up and he went to the washroom, and while he was coming from the washroom, the bus is going up a hill. I guess something happened, and the suitcase that he had, big suitcase that he had in the aisle standing up back beside his seat, just took off and hit him violently and really damaged him, hurt him. And he took him to court for compensation. And the driver, told the judge how he offered him, to put the luggage in the compartment, and he wouldn't do it. And because he was so persistent, he wanted to take off on his journey. He allowed him to put it in the aisleway, so therefore he's not responsible, because it was because of the fact that he was stubborn and he was argumentative and all of that, and he didn't want to comply with the rules, so therefore he's not responsible. And the judge ruled in the guy's favor. And what the judge is saying is that the driver is more knowledgeable. He knows about the danger of driving and the danger of, when he's going up a hill and something happens, if you have some object in the highway, it can just take off and damage somebody. So in spite of the fact that this stubborn guy who didn't want to comply with the rules, he broke all of the rules, didn't want to put his suitcase in the luggage compartment, and the driver allowed him to bring the suitcase on the bus. The driver had to pay him more than $100,000 in compensation. So what I'm trying to say is that even though these people are saying these things to Joseph is the man who is the godly man. He is the righteous man. He is the knowledgeable man. He's the one that knows about the beginning of the famine and when the famine is going to come to an end. They coming to him and saying to him these terrible things to buy us and buy our children. As the sister rightly said, Joseph so said, no. We gone a little bit too far. Let us draw a line right here. This is where we bring an end to it. But he didn't do that. But interpreters are putting the blame on the people, and they're saying, well, the people, they are the one that made this kind of a proposal to Joseph. So Joseph is not responsible. And that's the reason why I'm saying is that interpreters are very dishonest. Bible interpreters are very biased, very dishonest, and even in some cases they are racist. And I prove it for myself by reading these commentaries and make comparison and see the way how these guys are doing their interpretation. They are not very honest, and they are very selective. They will cherry pick. Bible interpreters cherry pick what they want to comment on. Yes, go ahead.
Do you think that Joseph could be blindsided by culture instead of doing what is, as our sister said, the man with the experience and godly towards the people? Because in that time, the culture that they sell you get sold to somebody else.
Well, yes. Well, people, yes, because even during the time of the Israelites, when they were living in the land of Canaan, they were able to buy people for a certain period of time. You could have made a deal with me if you have a debt and you can't pay it. You were able to make a deal with me to enslave yourself or maybe your family for a certain period of time. And if you enslave yourself to me for 7 years, and I treat you so well, and you don't want to go back on your own, and you come to me and say, listen man, Pastor Duncan, you treat me so nice during that time of solitude under you, and I'm so happy I'm a part of your family now. I don't want to go back on my own. What I have to do, I have to take you and whatever among the family members you have, and I lean you up against the doorpost. I take a big nail and I punch it through your ears, and I put an earring in your ears, which means that you and whoever you bring into the family become a part of my family, and you're going to stay with my family for life. That was how slavery was during that time. Slavery during that time wasn't like what our forefathers experienced. the suffering that we experienced throughout slavery, the beating and the branding and the abuse, the sexual abuse and all this kind of thing. Bible slavery, the Israelites didn't do that to each other because the Lord placed rules and regulation whereby they had us to abide by. So what we are saying here is that Joseph had the burden of proof because he was the knowledgeable person. He was the godly man, and the Egyptian, they was ungodly, they were heathen. So therefore, when they came to him with that kind of a thing, he being the righteous man who in connection with Yahweh, he should have put a stop into it, but he didn't stop it. He embraced it. So it tells us, why shall we die before your eyes, both we and our lands? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our lands will be servant to Pharaoh. Our lands is going to be servant to Pharaoh by us. You know what I'm seeing in this text? I'm seeing here, for instance, if somebody in our time, if a leader in our time should do something like this, we are going to call him a communist dictator. Anybody in this time who will do something like that, we're going to call him communist, and we're going to say that they are dictator. But when we look at Joseph, nobody, at least, you guys will say, well, if I go and say Joseph is a communist, I might end up in hell, so we're not going to say that. We are not brave enough to say this is communistic ideas that Joseph is really implementing here. And, when you look at these things that Joseph is doing here, this is how the communists operate. When you are communist, when you have a communist government, you want all of your people's wealth and property to become government. You want the government to own everything. What is happening here is communist and colonialism that is mixed in here. Because during the time when the Europeans go in and they colonize places, what they'll do, they'll go in and they take the people's land, they take their property, take their gold, take everything that have any kind of value, then they enslave the people. So when I look at the text here, I'm seeing communists and I'm seeing people who colonialize, and this is what Joseph is doing here. All of these, you see, that's what I'm saying. When we study the Bible, we can't just, we have to think, and we have to look, and we can't just depend on what the interpreters tell us. Because as I tell you, all of the Bible commentaries out there basically say the same thing, Years ago, I used to spend hundreds of dollars buying Bible commentary, but I ain't doing that anymore. Because all of the Bible commentaries basically say the same thing. What these commentators are doing, they're going to make a commentary. They will get people who give commentary on the Bible before, and they will reference it, and they will see what they say, and they will just change a few things. But nobody not going to go out on the limb and say anything, because everybody wants to be regarded as a good commentator. You don't want to go offline. And what I'm saying here is that what Joseph was doing here, I don't think it was godly. Some people say, Pastor, no, you might end up in hell. So be it. I don't think what Joseph was doing here was godly. And we have to, something that we need to understand. It doesn't mean because something is written in the Bible, God approve it. A lot of people make that mistake to believe because something is recorded in the Bible, this is recorded here, and it means that God placed his seal of approval on it. That is far from the truth. It doesn't mean because it is in the Bible, it is approved of God. And I don't think the God that we serve, a God who is a God of justice, a God of fairness, I don't think he will do some of the things that I see Joseph doing here. And when I see the way how Joseph operates, what comes into my mind, we talk about the millennial reign, when Yeshua is going to reign on earth for 1,000 years. Anybody read about that? And, he's going to set up leaders over different sections of the world, of the community and stuff like that. I said to myself, if Joseph, could you imagine if Joseph is a leader? Man, he is going to be one hard guy to deal with. Look at the way how he operates in here. So in verse 19, it said that the people said, well, why shall we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread. So, as I said before, if your neighbor fall on hard time and they come to you with this kind of foolish idea, I can't survive. I don't have any money to take care of myself. Buy my daughter, buy my wife, or use my son to go and sell drugs, or use my daughter to go into prostitution, use my wife to go into prostitution, or you can, get a deal whereby you can get somebody who's a drug dealer and I will go out and sell it. And listen, just give me some money and whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Would you agree to that? No, none of us will agree to that. Somebody, you see, back in that time, people, we have good people today. We have some really evil people back in Bible time. We have evil people today. But if somebody should fall in a situation like this now, and they come to you as a neighbor, the first thing you're going to do, you're going to try to help them out, give them what you can, and then you go down the street, you start talking to a couple of people, you call some people on the phone, and you say, oh, listen, my neighbor John is experiencing hardship. Let us get together, let's try to help him out. You're not going to try to put his son to sell drugs and, put his wife and his daughter into prostitution. You're not going to do that. And somebody say, well, Pastor Nolan, you're using some drastic things here. But when I look at what Joseph was doing, I don't really see any difference in what he was doing here. He said, and we and our lands will be servant to Pharaoh and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. So these people say, well, we're going to become servant to Pharaoh. And as I said before, Joseph had all of these people over the barrel. And Joseph could do to them anything he wants to do to them at this particular time. Because he had them where he wants to have them. These people are so, they were broken. The famine had these people broken. And he took away their land, took away all of their animals. Now all they have is themselves and, their land. And, he have them right where he wants to have them. And they offer to become Pharaoh's slave and give us seed that we should live and not die, that the land be not desolate. So as I said before, this probably was the last year of the famine. This was the seventh, some Bible interpreters say that this was the last year of the famine, meaning that this was the last year, the 7th year of the famine. And could you imagine Joseph, as I said, he already knew when the famine was going to come to an end. And this is the last year. And these people come to him in the last year and offer themselves as slaves and want to sell their land. Joseph should not go along with that. He should, put an end to it. And this is the last year of the famine. The famine is going to come to an end. And how do we know that it was the last year of the famine? You see where it says here, and give us seed. So why would they ask for seed? Right. They're getting ready to plant the land again. Right. That we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. They don't want the land to be desolate. It's the last year of the famine. And that was when Joseph should have said, well, listen, I'm going to give you food and credit. You don't have money. Already take away all of your animals, all of your money. I have it in the treasury, and I have all of your animals. I'm not going to go the route that you want me to go. I'm not going to enslave you, and I'm not going to take away your land. I know this is the final year of the famine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you food on credit. And when, you work your land, then you're going to have to pay it back. But no, he didn't do that. It tells us in verse 20, and Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field. That's why the interpreters are saying here that it wasn't Joseph who pressured them. There was no pressure here. They're saying it's the people who did it voluntarily, and therefore you can't blame Joseph. And another point that they're making is that Joseph didn't buy it for himself. Joseph bought it for Pharaoh. And then I saw one interpreter this morning who was saying that these tough measures that was implemented here, it wasn't Joseph doing. These interpreters trying to make excuse for Joseph. Yeah. So what one of them is saying is that this is not Joseph doing it. This is Pharaoh who passed down the law. Pharaoh gave Joseph the law to put in place, and Joseph didn't have a choice. He had to put it in place. He had to implement it. So you can't blame Joseph. You have to put the blame back on Pharaoh. These tough measures came down from Pharaoh. Yes?
Until I see for myself.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, make it short, so we can get on.
Yeah, until I see that part for myself and I won't see it. Mm-hmm. But then again, it could have been because these people, they're black people, so, I mean, maybe, that's why he's doing all of that.
So the point I'm trying to make, so do you think that Joseph was not responsible and he was only following orders?
No.
What do you have to say, brother?
No, what I'm looking back at, I mentioned it, but probably you didn't catch it well. That these people apparently was not so much under the authority of Pharaoh.
No, we can't say that because it's Egypt.
Yeah, it's Egypt, but even self in Egypt, it's like people were living a kind of free. Yeah, managing their own selves.
Before the famine.
Right. So then it's like now the famine is say you want to, and we're dealing with harsh authority and measures. Now you want everybody come under the authority. Right. So that is why you see like Joseph, after he bought them, he bring all of them into the city.
Oh, we come to that too. We're gonna come to that. So there's so many things here that don't play out like godliness. Right. And still we try to put a godly cover over it. And I find that is so wrong. And as I said before, maybe Joseph getting into leadership in Egypt, maybe that have a bad effect on him. Yeah. And people don't want to acknowledge these kind of things because a lot of these things that Joseph is doing here, people, theologians still saying, you could see the godliness and the graciousness and the mercifulness, the compassion, the love that Joseph had for these people. It just radiated, it's coming out, every time he deal with them with so much compassion. I'm not seeing that. I mean, say I might be blind to some of these things, but I really see that. I don't see any compassion here that Joseph is really dealing with. I'm seeing harshness. I'm seeing he is dealing like a communist dictator. I'm seeing, where it's like colonialism, where they colonize people and they take away all of their property, take away all of their wealth. It's like when the Europeans go down into South America, into places like Mexico and Brazil and all these places, they have so much gold in those places. You should see, when you read these things and you see how much tons upon tons of gold the Spanish take out from places like Mexico and all these South American countries down there, these people, they take away their land, they enslave the people, so many people get killed. At one time, the Indians in some part of South America who was living down there, the Europeans didn't see them as human beings. So what they were doing, they were killing them, just keep killing them. And one of the Pope who was in power at the time, the Pope sent a message and said, no man, we have to respect these people and see them like human beings, as members of humanity, and we can't just be killing them like that. And anybody who break this law, because we have to understand at that time, the Roman Catholic Church was in full control of the world. They probably ruled the world for close to 1,500 years. So the Pope gave out a decree and said, if anybody break this decree, we're going to excommunicate them from the church. And that is what everybody afraid of. Nobody wants to be excommunicated from the church. If you get excommunicated from the church, it means that you're going straight to hell. Amen. So nobody want to get that. So what we are saying, what Joseph was doing, this was terrible. And there's no way we can make an excuse for Joseph. I know theologians try to make an excuse. And what they say is that Joseph was not responsible because it was Pharaoh who was giving these orders. And Joseph just had to carry them out. But when I look at the text, I see Pharaoh take a back seat. Yeah. And Pharaoh allowed Joseph to rule. Yeah. And who knows, the way I'm seeing these things playing out here, Maybe some of these things, Pharaoh probably didn't even know that Joseph implemented some of these things. You know? And Pharaoh gave Joseph total control over the land of Egypt. But here we see these theologians, they're making an excuse and they say, well, Joseph was just doing some of these things because he was under Pharaoh's direction. But if you're a godly person and you're working in a company and your boss telling you to do things that is not right, things that is not godly, what are you going to do? Are you going to do it? You're going to say, well, I'm under his command. Even though he have a gun and if you refuse, he's going to shoot you. You know, what are you going to do as a godly person? Brother Lewis, what are you going to do?
Lord, if you see, them things are not like that. them things like that. Okay.
Especially in the kingdom. You have to be very careful.
Brother Lewis, you don't answer me yet.
Wait a while. You see, when you're in a kingdom like Joseph, like he have to delegated authority. The king now is the boss. So he have to report to him. Joseph must report to him. Joseph must report to Pharaoh.
Well, yes, he should.
So he has to report to Pharaoh.
Right.
So Pharaoh will give him the instruction what to do.
Right.
So what they say is right. Yeah,
so
is right.
So what you say, you are in agreement with what they said, that it was Pharaoh behind all of this, and Joseph was just carrying out these instructions.
That's true.
And Joseph was not in agreement, because what they said is that Joseph, even though he was doing these things, being Joseph and being so godly, he's the golden boy, he's the spiritual giant, he not in agreement with these things, but because he's afraid of Pharaoh, he know that these things is wrong, but he have to carry them out.
Because Joseph was working. Joseph had a job.
Well, that's what they're saying.
He had a job. So he's a own delegated authority. So Joseph come he's like a businessman. So we call him a politician.
Well, if that's the case, Joseph is not a godly man. Joseph is not a Daniel. Joseph is not a John the Baptist. Because John the Baptist would have faced off Pharaoh and said, Pharaoh, what you're doing is wrong and I'm not going to do it. Daniel would have said, Pharaoh, what you're doing here to these people, I can't stomach it. I'm going to quit. Whatever you want, if you want to throw me in the lions, then throw me in the lions then. John the Baptist would say to Pharaoh, Pharaoh, you slice off my neck. But I'm going to say that what you're doing here is wrong. But Joseph was a chicken. If that's the case, Joseph was just a chicken and he didn't have the guts, he didn't have the balls to say to Pharaoh, well, this is wrong. So therefore, even though he was there and he know that it was wrong, but he just had to obey Pharaoh. I don't believe that. Yeah, I don't think so.
When you study Daniel, in all of them he had 3 presidents.
Yes, I know. Yes.
3 presidents. And others maybe about 300 and something other men below him. And the other was the chief of the president. But you have the king as a chief.
Yes.
So he must report to the king.
We know, yes.
Come together. So he's actually the same.
Alright, so we move on. It tells us 20. And Joseph bought all the lands of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field. So it's not for Joseph, he bought it for Pharaoh, so therefore he can't take the responsibility. We can't blame him for these measures because he's not doing it for himself. And it's the same thing during the time of slavery. Most of these overseers, most of these Negro house slaves that the master gives some prerogative. They wasn't doing it for themselves, they were doing it for the master. Yes, we understand that. But what they were doing, it was wrong. Joseph had more knowledge. Joseph had more understanding about what was going on than even Pharaoh. Joseph had more knowledge of this whole situation here, more than even Pharaoh. Joseph, he knew when the famine was going to start, knew when the famine was going to end. He knew that they were in the last year of the famine, and still he decided to take away the people's land and enslave them, and then he gave them seed, knowing that they were in the last year of the famine. What I'm saying is that he should have advanced them. He should have given them a credit. You ever go to a store and get credit?
Yeah.
Yes, you get credit. You get credit, maybe you make a down payment on a dress. We used to go and we get credit on food. You know, you go and you buy, you know, how much food you want to credit, and the storekeeper will write it down, and then when you get some money, you're going to make a deposit, but you can't go buy no else, you know.
No.
You have to go to that store. So he could have given them a credit, but he didn't give them no credit. And it tells us, there's something else I didn't get in. And did eat, let me go back, where I am, 20? Yes, let me read that over. And Joseph bought all the lands of Egypt for Pharaoh, and the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh. All the lands became Pharaoh. All the lands was owned by the people. But because of the stiff measures that Joseph implemented, all of the money that the people had at the time ended up in Pharaoh's treasury. All of the lands ended up in Pharaoh's, belonging to Pharaoh. Let's suppose that they decide to implement this now in Canada. Let us suppose the government decides to take away all property, bring all property as government property, take away all of the properties that we have, all of your investment. The government decides to take it over. All of the houses and the different things that people have here, government take it over. What do you think will happen?
Right.
Everybody's going to go out and buy a gun.
But Pastor,
Amen.
Look at it. Nobody owns nothing here too. Because if you don't pay your taxes, they confiscate the property.
Well, yes, if you don't pay taxes, yes, but then the government, yes, I understand that you have to pay your taxes, but this is not a communist country. This is not a communist country where the government owns all the property. No, it's not like that. We know it's not the best, but we can't really put it like it is in some places. So what we're saying, if a government should do that here, people will rise up. We talk about Canadian peaceful, we are peaceful bunch of people and we don't like, argument, and we don't be very quiet and stuff like that. You'll see how much quiet Canadians going to be if government decide that they're going to take their property. Look at, there was a few years ago, you remember when Tim Hudak said that if he become premier, that he was going to, 100,000 jobs he said he was going to get rid of? And you see how fast people they get up and they talk against Tim Hudak, and they don't want him to become premier. When you step in on people's toes like that, they're not going to let you do it.
But Pastor, I have a point here. Just a moment, please. I was in a study on this.
Okay, look at Canada and America. Mm-hmm. Canada and America is corporate countries. And when you're a corporate country, you have a boss. Who is the boss? The Queen of England owns the property. So if you don't, so most of the taxes you pay, that goes to her. Even my country too. So that's like a corporate country. So even our president and prime ministers, you're owned by somebody still. All the information are there.
You see, all I'm trying to point out here, it doesn't mean because somebody is a leader, a spiritual leader, that they can't make mistakes. Right. Joseph was a spiritual leader, and we can't put it down as if, he couldn't make a mistake. And it's the same thing we're doing today. We have all of these spiritual giants that are doing so much of bad things in the church and in the community today. And because we have them as spiritual giants, nobody will believe. When a 16-year-old boy will accuse one of these spiritual giants out there and say, he sexually abused me. You think one of these spiritual giants out there, look at Bishop Eddie Long. Bishop Eddie Long was a spiritual giant. And these 4 boys came out and said, Bishop Long, you know how long they say it? Bishop Long abusing us. He's sexually abusing us. And nobody not believing them. Why? Because Bishop Eddie Long is a spiritual giant. So therefore, he not going to do these kind of things. You know how much of these young girls out there who getting pregnant by these bishop, honorable right bishop, getting these girls pregnant, and then nobody not believing them. You get pregnant as a young girl and go and say that is the honorable right bishop that pregnant you. How much people you think going to believe you? No, most people not going to believe you because the bishop not going to do that. He's a spiritual man. Everybody look up to him. And these are the things that we need to look at. And what I'm saying is that Joseph was not more spiritual than me. I'm telling you right now. Joseph was not more spiritual than me. None of these guys, Abraham, they all put on their pants one leg at a time. Just like how I make mistake all the time. And they make mistake also. And when they make the mistake, it's very unjust on our part to try to cover up for them. I just imagine how God the Father up in heaven and he just, oh man, look at that. Look at how they covering up. Look at how they're trying to put a plaster. It is a big sore foot here. This is a sore foot. And yes, it stinks. And we still taking a band-aid and we try to put a band-aid. Listen, you put a band-aid on a sore foot, it's not going to get better. No. You have to expose it. It's not like, back in the day, somebody have a sore foot. You see people have a sore foot and they have on long pants. And it will never get better. And after a while, they have to amputate. You have to chop off the foot. But if you have a sore on your foot and you're man enough to roll up your pants foot, or you wear short pants and you expose it to the sunlight and to the breeze, you're going to get better. Yeah. And this is what we are doing. We are putting a band-aid on a lot of these things that these guys did in the Bible. And because it is written down in the Bible, we think that God will prove it. And the same thing we're doing today when people make mistakes today. Listen, if I make a mistake, I don't want nobody to cover for me. None of you guys don't cover for me if I make a mistake. If I make a mistake, you be godly enough, humble enough to come and say, Pastor Duncan, what you do there, I didn't like what you do. And I like what you say. And you come and talk to me. You don't try to cover for me. I don't want nobody cover for me. Because I'm not covering up for anybody either. If somebody make a mistake, we have to be man enough, woman enough to say, well, this is a mistake that you do. But we're not pulling you down. When somebody make a mistake, you don't pull them down. What you're supposed to do, you have to embrace them. And you say, listen, it's a mistake, you do something wrong. And I know that you probably didn't really realize it, but, we are here for you still. And this is what we need to do. When somebody make a mistake, you don't cover it up. You don't cover it up and pretend like it never exists. Because we are not doing them any kind of favor. Okay, where we are now. And as for the people, he removed them to cities from one end of the border of Egypt even to the other end thereof. You want to tell me Joseph is a godly man? Joseph take the people's land. And what he did, he took them from off of the land. And for instance, you living in the north, he take you and he put you in the south. You living in the east, he take you and he put you in the west. And he switch up everybody. And what interpreters are saying, the excuse that they're using here, is that Joseph did this as a favor to the people because of the fact that we already said that all of this, the food storage, all of the food banks was in the cities. So Joseph did them a favor. He brought them closer to where the food was. So therefore he so loved them and he's so thinking about them. He don't want these people to suffer. So he take them from the countryside and he brought them into the city close to the food bank where they can just easily get the food, and that's the reason why he did that. You think that was the reason? There's a sinister reason behind it why he did that. And yes, it is control. Because what he's doing, he already bought the land from the people. So what he's doing, he's making them know that they don't own the land anymore. Because let's suppose you have a piece of land and you sold the land to me. I bought that piece of land and I said, listen, I'm going to pay for your land. But you could live there, man. Live there for as long as you want. It's my land. I have the title deed. But you could live there. Although you sold the land to me, you still feel connection with the land because you're living there. But if I bought that land, a piece of land from you, and I kick you off, or take you and put you somewhere else in another piece of land that I have, you don't have no connection to that piece of land that you just sold me. And this is what Joseph was doing. So, as the brother said, it was total control. Joseph was a control freak. I'm telling you, some of you will say, oh, Pastor Duncan, you risk going to hell by saying these kind of things. But I am just being honest. I'm just being truthful. When we see things like this in the Bible, we don't need to cover for God. Too much people try to cover for God. And that is how we go astray. this week I was thinking about this, and I'm going to close on this. One of the problems in the black community here is that we worship our leaders. We worship our leaders. For the last month or so, I was listening to the biography of Malcolm X, and they have it on tape, and I was listening to it, and it go through all the details, and it show you Malcolm X's mother and his father, how they have all of these kids. His mother was from Grenada. Malcolm X's mother was a Grenadian. She was a half white. She got that 1% of black blood in her. And she married to this big giant of a man, black man. And this guy was walking along with Marcus Garvey. And he was a no-nonsense kind of guy who called it when he sees it. And he had 6 or 7 children. And before that, he had all of his brothers. I think he had about 6 brothers. 4 of them, I think, was killed by the European, Lynch and Bourne and all of that. And this guy was a no-nonsense kind of guy. And I'm listening to the biography of Malcolm X. It's a long thing. And why I said that, one of the biggest problems in the black community is that we worship our leaders. I see where Malcolm X was at the point where he worshiping Elijah Muhammad. Yeah. Elijah Muhammad is God to him. And then Elijah Muhammad just let him down because he had him so perfect. And then he discovered that Elijah Muhammad had about maybe 6 women that he having children with. And Elijah Muhammad, he disfellowshipping. If you in the movement and you miss the mark and you have a sexual relationship with one of the sisters in the church without making her your wife and stuff like that, he's going to exile you. He's going to kick you out. And then when they found out that he's doing that, he's untouchable. He's nothing wrong. So Malcolm X, being a John the Baptist, he started to speak out against that. And then they end up having to kill him because of that. So that's what I'm saying. One of our problems is that we like to worship men too much. But I'm telling you, I ain't worshiping nobody. Me ain't bowing down to nobody. And I ain't want nobody bow down to me either. We are all men. You remember when, I think it was James and John or Peter or whoever, they went certain places. And what is it, the Apostle Paul? And when they speak so boldly, and the people respected them, and the people said, well, this is God, come down to earth. And they said, no man, we are just men just like you. And all of us, we are men. I am not going to worship any one of you guys. And I don't want nobody to worship me. I am just Eric. I am just Pastor Duncan. Me not no special person up here. And this is how we have to see all people. And that includes all of the men and women in the Bible. They put on their pants one leg at a time. They put on their dress by throwing it over their neck. If they have a zip in it, they unzip it. The same way they put it on, in the same way you will put it on also. So the only person that we have to worship is God. Amen. And God alone. May the Lord bless us. Alright, we close here for today. Most High God, bless us even as we go along with these studies. I pray, oh God, that your presence will remain in the midst of your people. Keep on pouring out your Spirit upon us. We ask these favors in the name of your Son, Yeshua. Amen. Bless the Lord.
Amen.